Hey guys, and welcome back to Beer Fueled Fantasy Football. How is everything going? Hopefully you guys are having a great weekend. Hopefully some of you guys get a 3-day weekend here with President's Day.
What's that like?
It's pretty nice. It's pretty nice.
I don't know what that.
It is pretty nice. I'm pretty excited about it. It makes the fact that I've been traveling a lot easier because I get a day to relax. You should try it sometime, Dan.
We'll see.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are Beer Fueled Fantasy Football as always. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Untapped, Beer Fueled FF. If you want to locate us there, hit us up for our can art, beer reviews, or just generally want to touch base with us, hit us up there on the Beer Fueled FF channel. Otherwise, you can find us individually. I'm at Nick Sparts down in St. Louis, and just back from Kentucky is Christopher Hopper.
At Hot BFF with TPs came back with some good stuff for the show in the coming weeks. So make sure you keep looking out for that. Listening out for that.
All right, and then to my right is Dan Thury.
And Thury BFF with 2 Fs, finally not, dead inside like I was last week.
All right, so thank you so much for tuning in, guys. We are continuing with our State of the League episodes. We got 2 more left. This one we're going to go ahead and do part 2 of the wide receiver position. Just go ahead and dive through some wide receiver 3s and just some other guys that we feel like we need to talk about. Before we get to that, though, and all the news that's dropped here in the last week, we got a beer preview for you guys. All right, on today's episode, we've got Mrs. O'Leary's Chocolate Milk Stout by Spiteful Brewing Company. Second time we've had them on the podcast, based out of Chicago, Illinois. And since they didn't put a description on the can, I decided that Mrs. O'Leary's is a milk stout designed to get you up and through milking cows on a cold Midwest morning. Comes in at 7% ABV.
Yeah, it looks like the cow also kicks the bucket out from under it if we're going by the can art there.
Sometimes it's better that there's no notes on the beer, so we can just make up what we think or it should be said on it.
We'll say this about Spiteful. It's the first stout that I think I've had from them. They did also just release a 4-pack of Russian Imperials I've tried one from already. It was pretty good.
Hostile Harry.
Yeah, that's the variety one where they're all slightly different, right?
Yep. They did a variety porter as well last week. We know their porters are good. We've had them on, so. And I've had about 5 different porters from them. So we'll see how their chocolate milk stout is. But I'm expecting good things from what I've had from this brewery so far.
All right, let's go ahead, jump over into some news. Oops, wrong drop.
You can tell Nick's in mid-season form.
Yeah, just straight misclicked. I've got them right next to each other. All right, for the news, big one that we have here is the Broncos acquiring quarterback Joe Flacco from the Ravens in exchange for a 2019 4th-round pick. This solves a lot of the cap issues for the Ravens.
Yay.
And then the Broncos look like they're going to go ahead and roll Joe Flacco as a bridge quarterback, and they're very likely to either trade or cut Case Keenum.
Why?
You know what this doesn't? Well, I'll get to why in a second. But you know what this doesn't solve for the Ravens? Quarterback problems, because now they've just got a glorified running back there that kind of has some art and talent, but no idea how to use it.
Yeah, it's going to be.
But at least they freed up his contract.
They did free up his contract.
Worth
also,
it.
this about Flacco going to Denver is he's going to have weapons, unlike what he's had in Baltimore, really, since Steve Smith left. So I'm not going to run out and grab Joe Flacco in fantasy, but I think it is good news for whichever wide receiver emerges there. I think we all are kind of hoping it's Cortland Sutton, but it could be good news for Deshaun Hamilton as well. We've seen Flacco produce wide receivers, and I talked about this on the Football Garbage Time podcast back on Wednesday when I did my guest spot, so you can go check that out there. But to save the trouble, my other point to Joe Flacco and Case Keenum is I saw a graphic circulating that said, well, over the last 3 years or whatever, they've had very similar numbers, but the difference is what they had to do that with. Case Keenum had an offense with Stephon Diggs, with Adam Thielen, with Kyle Rudolph and Latavius Murray, and Joe Flacco had John Brown trying to rebound his career, the corpse of Willie Snead, and nothing else.
I believe there was something called a Michael Crabtree there as well.
And a plethora of tight ends.
Yeah, Michael Crabtree and a Walker.
All the tight ends.
Hayden Hurst and a Walker.
and Ben Watson breaking kneecaps.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
Well, anything else on the Joe Flacco situation?
No.
it doesn't really move the needle a whole lot, in all honesty.
No.
I still hate Baltimore wide receivers, and I still don't like Denver quarterbacks.
Pretty much.
All right, Browns go ahead and signed running back Kareem Hunt, formerly of the Chiefs, to a 1-year contract. We still don't know what his suspension status is going to be for 2019.
And again, why? I mean, there's reasons to it. I mean, at least it makes the Browns more competitive offensively. But as Nick just pointed out, we don't know what Kareem Hunt's suspension is going to look like. We don't know how many games he's going to have to miss in 19. There's been talks of this potentially being a move for them to just have Hunt as an RFA and then not bring him back in 2020 and try to get a draft pick out of him.
Could be the Carlos Hyde thing, too. If he does get to play a little bit this year, you showcase him, you trade him to somebody else that's willing to take a shot. But my only advice here is if I'm the Nick Chubb owner, don't freak out. And if I'm the Kareem Hunt owner, just give you a reason to be patient because you know he's going to get a crack in some way, shape, or form now.
And if you want to try to go out and buy Nick Chubb, just go see how your owners are feeling about it.
Yeah, if the Nick Chubb owner is freaking out, definitely go kick the tires and see if you can get him.
Yeah.
But if you're a Nick Chubb owner, don't freak out.
Exactly.
All right. Texans released failed physical Demaryius Thomas, and then apparently a few days later he was involved in a car rollover.
He was?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see that.
Well, his career's already pretty much over with a torn Achilles, and he's going to be 32 in, I think, July.
Yeah, we talked about this a bit. No, we talked about we talked about Emmanuel Sanders. But if you want to go listen back to that conversation from last episode and just rinse, wash, repeat for Demaryius Thomas, go ahead.
I'm pretty sure we get to Demaryius Thomas in just a little bit here, so you can just give more thoughts then too.
Yep.
Speaking of players and torn Achilles, 49ers declined Pierre Garçon's 2019 option.
There's still a lot of receivers there, so we'll see.
Rinse, wash, repeat.
Yeah.
30-plus-year-old wide receiver of the torn Achilles.
Yeah. Likely done, or at least likely done from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, he may try to go latch on as like a 3 or a 4 somewhere.
If they can, yeah, maybe.
All right.
Yep.
Lions released wide receiver Bruce Ellington.
And he'll sign someplace. We'll make a comment about what is dead may never die. We'll recommend you start him at some point during Bipocalypse next season, and that will be all you hear about Bruce Ellington.
Yep.
So you got that to look forward to.
Yeah,
which is
right.
nice.
He'll be someone's start of the week during Bipocalypse in 2019.
Yeah, he will be.
Bills released tight end Charles Clay.
Yay.
It's the first time we've had to say his name on this podcast in over a year.
It feels like forever.
Yeah, it's been pretty much since preseason of this last year.
Oh, my God.
Because he basically did nothing all season.
I didn't even know I was still on the roster. It's a lie. I did know. It's my job to know. But
He was a healthy scratch to end the year.
he was invisible.
He pretty much was.
Casper, the friendly tight end.
Then in some kicker news, Jaguars re-signed kicker Josh Lambo to a 4-year, $15.5 million contract.
Wasn't he your K1 this year?
He was our best offensive player.
No, I don't even think he played the entire year for the Jaguars, did he?
I think he did.
No, I'm thinking of somebody else.
I don't think.
He had a really good year, though. He was very solid, so it's a good thing they locked up their best source of points.
I don't think that offense was good enough for him to possibly be the kicker one, though.
It wasn't.
No,
I mean,
I'm
he
thinking
was
of somebody else. That's not
He was
him.
their kicker one.
Yeah.
They're
Most
one.
weeks.
They're only.
They're one and only offensive
One and only.
producer.
All right. Any other news I missed, guys?
Nothing that I am aware of.
All right. Well, let's continue on with our postseason check-in series, talking state of the league.
Postseason check-in.
All right, and this is episode 75 in a 48-episode series. Continuing on to the wide receivers. Just being weird.
All right. Nick's alive.
It feels like it.
Yeah.
No, I'm right there with him.
Yeah, it does. No, I just wasn't expecting to hear it from Nick.
All right, continuing, we are going on to the wide receiver part 2s for this series. Going on to get these would be guys who got 120 plus points in half PPR. Starting off, number 29 is Sterling Shepard. There is some buzz that Odell may be getting traded this offseason, which would be interesting. He's flashed when he's the only guy left standing, but unfortunately, he's usually the wide receiver too, and he's not nearly as consistent in those situations. How do we feel about Sterling Shepard catching balls from the corpse of Eli Manning?
There's two sides to this coin, like with most coins. The first is that he gave you some solid games, but really with the injuries to Odell Beckham and Evan Ingram, you expected more out of Sterling Shepard. He had a prime chance to break out, prime chance to show he could be the guy, and he didn't do anything with it. When those two guys were injured, again, he flashed a little bit, but he's been flashing for a couple of years, or for the first 2 years in the league as well. The other side of that coin is in terms of targets, yards, and receptions, it was his best year, and he's incredibly durable. So, I don't know if Sterling Shepard is just forever going to be this fringe type of a flex wide receiver. And again, it's just because I didn't see enough to make me excited about Odell leaving for Sterling Shepard because he didn't flash it through the injuries. He flashed, sorry, it wasn't consistent as it though. Didn't show it.
Yeah, he's posted both of his healthy seasons. He's had over 100 plus targets, so there is some to be desired there, and there's upside there that Hopper has mentioned. It's just he's been very disappointing because we just expect more from him. As Hopper said, he's flashed and shown that he can be a very fantasy relevant receiver, especially when he's given the opportunity. But I don't know what the Giants are doing. I don't know what they're trying to build there, and if they trade Odell, which just seems fucking ludicrous to think about, but I'm not looking to buy him or anything like that. I think he's just a guy that you just kind of hold on to and see where his value takes him.
All right, so valuing him probably as a wide receiver 3 going forward. We don't expect too much more ceiling.
Yeah, higher wide receiver 3 because I think he does have some upside, but it hasn't been realized yet. This was season 3, and like I said, you just expected more out of him with Ingram and Odell hurt.
All right, let's go from a third-year player onto the ageless wonder himself, Larry Fitzgerald, coming in at number 30, and that was with some injuries this season that slowed him down and a terrible offense. New OC
player to a 30th year player.
What'd you say? Third to 30th?
Third to 30th.
That's right.
So thoughts on Fitzgerald with the new coach coming in that should help at least get this offense moving in the right direction?
I mean, he's nothing more than a buy candidate if you're, I guess, end season looking for some depth pieces, but that's if the offense looks better.
If you own him and you're not trying to win a championship this year, sell. And you really need to see what happens for this offense before I go endorse him in a redraft league, because if it's Josh Rosen as quarterback in this particular Cliff Kingsbury offense, I'm not excited.
All right. So, and if you are selling him, I would personally probably try to wait until in season to do it.
Yeah, that's the only time you should be able to.
Yeah, unless people get hyped up about the Kingsbury offense and Larry Fitzgerald having a huge year, in which case do it whenever that happens.
All right. Up next is Golden Tate, who went from an awesome situation in Detroit, got traded midseason, and is now going to be an unrestricted free agent. Thoughts on him going forward?
Landing spot ish. It just depends where you go. Yeah, I know. Hashtag landing spot matters.
If he failed to hit 90 receptions for the first time since he left Seattle, it was his first non-1,000-yard season. I think he'd had 3 out of 4 before this year. It was an overall down year, even prior to being traded. For a guy that's on the wrong end of 30, there were offensive issues in Detroit. I think you had some failure between Matt Patricia and Jim Bob Cooter to mesh there. He goes to Philadelphia, has trouble fitting in, I guess, if you want to call it that. And now you don't know where he's going to land for a receiver that's on the wrong end of 30. So, he's a throw-in piece for me, but like Dan said, landing spot is going to matter. We'll see how excited you can get about that offense, what the opportunity share is there, but there's some definite red flags as well.
Yeah, like if you're a team looking to rebuild or just retool, he's a guy that I can try to ship away if he lands into a decent situation. You can try to sell him based on his opportunity with said new team. That's how I feel about Golden Tate right now.
I agree with that take completely.
Or if you're a team the buy view, I think, is if you're a team who's looking to buy some cheap depth and just kind of take a shot and see if maybe you can pick up a flex guy week to week.
Yeah, I'm like, if you're a
Yeah.
team that feels like they could contend in 19, then he's definitely a guy that I could try to kick the tires on as a, third or fourth piece at best on my roster.
Yeah, somebody that you have no plans on starting, but could be an interesting piece if it works out well.
For bye weeks and things.
32, we had Mohamed Sanu. So we had 3 Falcons wide receivers in your top 32 this year. He is a possible cut candidate, though. What do we think goes on with Mohamed Sanu going in 2019 and forward from there?
I have a really hard time caring about Mohamed Sanu, honestly.
That's
And,
mean.
it's been that way for a while, and it's just because he's relevant a couple times throughout the season, but he's not a guy you look at as having year-to-year upside that's going to break out at any point in time. He's not a guy you look at starting regularly. He's not a guy that's even, can't necessarily be in week-to-week flex because it's seemingly so random whenever he does put up these good games. If you own him, you hold him, I guess, or you use him as a chip-in piece if somebody wants to buy. But I mean, really, the needle doesn't move a whole lot of Sanu, and I think if Ridley ascends any in year 2, that it just hurts Sanu more.
Yeah, he turns 30 years old in August. As Nick pointed out, too, he could be cut candidate, I believe, post June 1st. Atlanta could save $4 million if they cut him. It just depends on where their cap situation sits and if they address the wide receiver position during the draft and try to get younger there. As Hopper mentioned, with really potentially it's sending. If he stays in Atlanta, he's likely the 3 to start the year, and you're hoping for some floor games from him if you have to throw him out there.
Yep. Actually, it looks like they'd save about $5.5 million if they cut him this year. Otherwise, if they cut him next year, they'll save about $6.5 million.
Just depends where they're at if they need room.
All right. Up next, somebody hopefully is a little more exciting for you guys, D.D. Westbrook.
He was a little more exciting for me. He had 100-plus targets, which I thought really surprised me. 700-plus yards, 5 touchdowns. It's a pretty solid season overall. He wasn't really the deep threat everybody thought he would be. Just 10 yards of reception, and that was mostly a product of the Jacksonville offense and Nathaniel Hackett being terrible. So he's a guy in year 3 that I don't know that he fully breaks out, but it's still an interesting piece. I don't think he did a whole lot this year for me to move the needle on him, but he didn't do anything for me to hurt thinking that could be a year in, year out fantasy contributor either.
I'll be a little more intrigued. I put him down as potential buy low. With the rumors of Nick Foles being the quarterback in Jacksonville, we've seen what he can do in a John DeFilippo offense. It's just whether or not he's the de facto wide receiver 1. There's just a lot of 2s and 3s there. With I think Moncrief's a UFA, so I don't think they'll bring him back. But they have to likely defend the DJ Chark drafting in the second round. They could draft another receiver this year in a decent draft class.
Especially they definitely need to draft another receiver this year that isn't DK Metcalf.
Yeah. Oh, DK Metcalf. Yeah, that's all I got on Westbrook.
Yeah, he may end up being the de facto 1 here though, heading into 2019.
It's just I mean, I think he kind of was last year.
He was. That's why he had 100-plus targets for a team that didn't throw a bunch.
It was just so weird because I said the same thing when I saw his stats. Like, how the hell did he get 100-plus targets? And then you see some of the consistency that he had. He'd see 6 to 9 targets second half of the season. It's just whether or not he actually made something of those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's whether or not they're anywhere close to where he could catch them. He doesn't exactly have a giant catch radius or anything.
Exactly.
And he's not built to be a 1. He's built to be a Golden Tate type of slot receiver that could also stretch the field, give you some yak ability, and he needs other pieces around him to do that.
Yep.
All right, number 34, show favorite Zay Jones, who came on in the second half of the season once the Bills' offense started doing a few things. Goes from just an atrocious first year to a wide receiver 3 finish year 2, so not too bad for Mr. Jones.
When I know of a guy that I was shocked to see who got 100 targets, Zay Jones. But that was also because of how strong he ended the season, 9-plus targets in 4 of his 5 last games. So 102, 36.5% catch rate year 1 to 54.9 year 2. Not great, but better. Obviously, you
It puts
couldn't
him
get much
above the
worse.
Kelvin Benjamin line.
Over 50
Yeah.
is fine. Like, you can be a receiver in the NFL and successful with
I
over
mean,
50.
Josh Allen's throwing you the football, so if you can get anywhere near 60, you're doing pretty good. I do expect the Bills to add a bunch of. I expect them to add at least a few playmakers to this offense, and which could look a lot younger and different going into Josh Allen's year 2.
I think that they need to add a guy, especially at running back, tight end. I don't know how much they do at wide receiver. They could definitely use adding one more, but Robert Foster emerged as a field stretcher. Zay Jones is still just 24 years old. That we all thought had the build to be at least a wide receiver too. So I mean, maybe they do go out and spend on a high end guy as part of this rebuild, but I think they have some other needs to fill this year. Zay Jones, if he can keep that target volume, is going to be again in the wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 conversation, and if he can continue to improve the way he did from year 1 to year 2, that's going to say some good things for the year 3 guy.
Well, what I'd like to really see is I'd like to see them to go get a dynamic weapon at tight end who can also help block.
Well, thankfully, there's a
Max.
couple of those that come from one college that we should give him a chance to get there.
yeah, either one of the 2 Iowa guys or Irv Smith out of Alabama.
Irv
There's-
Smith.
One of those. I want one of those 3 in Buffalo.
Yeah, that would be very, very good.
Because you get Foster, Jones, and then Hawkinson is probably the one I'd like the best because he's the best blocker. That would be a pretty
Him-
fun trio.
him and almost anywhere, it's gonna be good stuff. But more him when we get to rookie tight ends.
All right. A guy who was a little disappointing this year and never really had the consistency we saw out of him in 2017 was Nelson Aguilar. The whole Eagles offense in general struggled, though. So any additional thoughts on Mr. Aguilar?
He leveled off, really. I mean, it was disappointing because he was hyped, but the only thing that fell was his touchdown rate, and touchdowns are fluky anyway. He went from having 8 to just 4, but yards were there. He caught both of his extra targets because there's literally a 2-target difference. And that's it. It was still a guy that you could roster and move in if you needed something, but he wasn't a guy you were comfortable starting, and I don't know that necessarily changes a whole lot, especially with Carson Wentz, who loves his tight ends.
I'm a little. I mean, just like Hopper said, he's rosterable, especially in dynasty leagues. He's a bye week guy. Golden Tate's gone. He should take back his number 2 wide receiver spot through the slot. He was productive when Ertz and Selleck were the tight ends there. Obviously, Goddard is a little bit better than Selleck as the number 2, but there is some potential of him getting back to some of his 17 form. But as Hopper said, it's hard to predict touchdowns, so you're hoping that he gets back to that level.
Yeah, he was a guy I was a little worried about this season, but it really didn't seem to be a him problem. It definitely just seemed to be the whole Eagles offense in general.
They switched to 3 receiver sets when they brought in Tate, and they completely changed how their offense ran, and they struggled because of it. And then they went back to 2.
It wasn't super dynamic before that point. It just got even uglier at that point.
Banged up Wentz didn't help either.
Agreed.
There are a lot of things that went wrong, and for Nelson Aguilar to put up pretty much what is a level season other than touchdowns, I think is a win.
Yeah.
For him.
All right. Hopefully they can get this offense going a little bit better in 2019 because they had some fun pieces I'd like to see more from rather than just the Ertz show. All right. Number 36, Robbie Anderson, he was one of our playoff heroes this year. Started off real slow in this offense, but turned it on about the last 4 weeks of the season to sneak in as a wide receiver 3. Any thoughts about him going forward? It looks like him and Enunwa are going to both be back there catching passes from the second-year quarterback.
Enunwa is very much a why. It's encouraging that Robbie Anderson has some rapport with Sam Darnold. You had to build that with the new quarterback coming in. Darnold's still young, so you hope he can develop, man. I think Robbie Anderson's tied to that. So he's an interesting piece. I own him in Dynasty, and I'd be, I'm kind of at a point where if I have to use him as a pot sweetener on a trade, I'm fine with that. If I end up having to keep him, I'm fine with that also.
Yeah, like if you want to try to sell high on his end of 18 season, I mean, it might be a little bit past that window because we're, 2-3 weeks removed from the Super Bowl and about a month and a half removed from the end of the season. But he's also an RFA. I do expect the Jets to bring him back in. I would not be surprised if teams kick the tires because he's just 25 years old.
Unless a team massively overpays, I'm sure the Jets will bring him
Yeah,
back.
it just depends if he can keep himself out of trouble and stop.
Well, that I
doing stupid
have no faith in.
Stop doing stupid shit.
I'm just hoping that he doesn't do anything so stupid he gets suspended for multiple games.
Then and then, if the Jets decide not to spend a high draft pick on a receiver, or and not bring in somebody that could compete as the as the true one there, I do expect that at some point in Darnold's early career. But I like what he was able to put together with him, especially second half of the season when he was the de facto number one.
All right. Up next is a guy who is on the opposite side of this boat, had a blow-up season for the first 3 to 4 weeks of the year, and then basically did nothing after that, and that was Deshaun Jackson.
I wake up every morning feeling like P. Diddy. No, I wake up every morning and I just ask myself, why won't Deshaun Jackson go away? And I've been doing that for about 4 years now because I just want him to go away. He's a guy I will never own in personal feelings, under any circumstances. I hate boom bust. He has only played 2 16-game seasons his entire career. Targets and receptions are also down consistently now for the last 3 seasons. Still put up 18.9 yards per reception. You know what that tells me? Boom bust. He's trying to force his way out onto another team, and I don't know if there's a receiver that's that age, that's a speed guy that has consistent health problems that any team should really take that big of a shot on.
And he's kind of a cancer to the locker room, as what we've seen the last couple of years with Tampa Bay. I completely agree with Hopper here. Like, the only way that I'll ever own a Deshaun Jackson share is in best ball as a super deep flyer pick, because he's gonna put together at least 1 or 2 wide receiver 1 week. So that's just what he does. So I definitely don't want to own him in redraft, and he has very little value in dynasty, if any.
Yep. Best ball only, basically.
Yep.
Though every year I lose at least 2 or 3 games across my leagues strictly due to Deshaun Jackson. He finds me.
He murders you. He like Ben Watson's you.
Yep.
It's weird.
I'll just run into the person who owns Deshaun Jackson. It's like, all right, well, he's going to go off this week.
It's going to happen.
Up next at number 38 is DJ Moore. Had a pretty nice second half of the season up until the point where Cam's shoulder fell off. So as long as Cam's shoulder comes out okay, or they can get a competent backup in here to take the ship for 2019, I think DJ Moore's a guy we're going to be thinking about. It's probably flirting with low wide receiver 2 status.
Yeah, like
I agree. I
would
agree completely, at least.
Yeah, he's somebody, like, if I'm wanting to do a rebuild or some retools, he's somebody I'm looking at and try to get in. Just the way he plays fits well for a lot of different molds of quarterbacks. He's a yak monster. We saw that out of Maryland. And he's just got better as a route runner. Like, loved what I saw from him second half. There was a little bit of inconsistencies even before Cam's shoulder injury, but I think if he can take control of this receiving core without Devin Funchess there, Curtis Samuel we don't really care much about anyways, I think there could be a lot of boom to him this 19 season.
Yeah, and the thing I liked was he'd won the job before everything went off the rails, and that was enough to see out of year 1 for him.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. He'd won the job before his shoulder fell off. He put up a couple big games. He flashed enough, and really the end of year performance was more Cam when he had an 85-yard game when they put Heineke.
Kyle Allen, I thought it was.
Yeah, Kyle Allen.
Oh, was it Kyle Allen?
Yeah.
I don't freaking know. When that game the backup played at the end of the year, he did good.
Yep, and I was impressed with what I saw. He flashed enough to match what I saw off his college tape that I'm excited to see what he does in 2019.
Yep.
And I think he's definitely going to be one of the better young assets that's not going to be absurd to try to go by.
I agree with that.
All right. We've talked about him a little bit already, but any additional thoughts on Demaryius Thomas, who came in at 39 here, got traded midseason, his Achilles blew up in a practice. Just any other thoughts or concerns about him, or is we just assuming he's basically done?
If you don't have any IR slots left, do you drop him in Dynasty?
I mean, as soon as I get to the point where I have to.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. He's dead.
Yeah. I actually put that in my notes. He's
Good
dead.
night, sweet prince.
You were good
It was
for
fun.
a while.
It's
You were
fun.
good.
On to somebody that's not dead.
No, he likes to get maimed, but he doesn't die, and that is AJ Green coming in at number 40. Was on pace for a significantly better finish than this, but just got hurt, couldn't come back, and re-aggravated the injury.
He does.
He
this.
was on pace for an incredible year.
Yeah. He'll be
So-
31 in July. I like where the Bengals offense could be going. This was a good looking offense before all the injuries derailed everything here. Completely new coaching staff, if I'm not mistaken. And they're
It's
all
been
a bunch of young
long time
people.
coming for that.
Yeah. So he's a buy low guy if you need something because his value is tanked completely.
Yeah, and I would
Especially if you're in a champ mode right now. If you're in a rebuild, maybe you don't want to kick the tires on that. But if you're looking to make a move before the season starts to try to get into position to win a championship in Dynasty, this is the time you do it.
I mean, I'd give up probably any 2019 first for him, and probably wouldn't even flinch at it if I'm a contending team.
I'm with you there.
Yeah.
I am absolutely with you there. There's enough holes in everybody that could be a top pick in this draft, or I'd be good with that.
I want to trade out of that top spot in for most situations.
I wanna
as
trade out of
Hopper
that.
just mentioned because my wide receiver or my number one player could be there in the mid rounds for all we know.
Yeah, I want to trade out of my top five, out of any of the top 5 picks this year, probably.
So go
Uh,
buy AJ Green if you are a championship potential contender.
Yeah, if you can get him in and he's your 2 or 3, and you don't have to pay too crazy, like a first or maybe a first and a little bit extra out of 2019. Make that.
You might be able
make
to
that
get him
move.
for just a 2019. You may need something more, but like you want to throw in some of the mid tier receivers.
Just depends on
from
if you're in a
last
league
year.
with people that know what's going on, though, too, because
That's
everybody's
true.
going to be, oh my God, DK Metcalf, oh my God, N'Keal Harry. So go sell it to that guy.
All right. Well, continuing the trend of guys who have had good seasons previously, but didn't quite make those expectations this year, is Allen Robinson. He is going to be going into year 2 of a Nagy offense. Did flash a little bit this season, made a couple really nice plays, but consistency was a big problem for him. So, do we
He
think
was
he's
hurt, too. He
he
finished
was
the
de-
year with cracked. He finished the year with cracked ribs, and he missed 4 games.
Yeah, he was just nothing really quite went right for him this year. So, do we think that gets better in 2019?
I think it does. I mean, if you extrapolate what he did over an entire season, is on pace for 62 receptions, 928 yards. So he was on pace for a solid wide receiver 2 season. It was the first year of that offense with a second-year quarterback that made some significant strides. So I do think it gets better for Allen Robinson.
Yeah, like this is an interesting situation because he hasn't been healthy since his big breakout, or he's had one healthy season since his big breakout year, and then we haven't been able to see what he could become if he gets comfortable in an offense and is able to play a full 16. You got to see that this year during stretches as the Bears offense were trying to figure out what they want to do with all their pieces. He's just 25 years old, so he's about to enter his prime years as a receiver. I think he's a decent buy low candidate if you feel like he can, ascend even more so in this offense.
Yep, he doesn't turn 26 until August, so you should still see another 4 or 5 good years out of him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just gotta stay healthy.
That is true for everybody. All right, number 42, Jordy Nelson. His corpse remains in the retirement home known as the Oakland Raiders.
I don't care.
Yeah, very, very similar look to last year. I don't care. I don't know why Oakland has him. They need to get rid of him. He is not a valuable piece
He
to that
just needs to
offense.
I don't know why
retire.
Oakland is doing anything they're doing.
Fair.
They're like a bad reality show that you can't stop watching.
Looking at you, Jersey Shore. Or Florida, Shore.
Jordy Nelson is the Jersey Shore of fantasy football.
Get crazy, get wild.
At least most of the Jersey Shore people, I don't think are over 30 at least, right?
I don't know. I think like half
the
the cast is
situation
actually.
The situation was old as fuck.
Okay.
I don't know. Moving on.
All right, and then similar note probably, John Brown flashed a little bit, but this offense was just a mess, and he couldn't keep it going throughout the
He's
season.
still young enough to be something. It's a shame that they don't have anybody that can throw a football there.
He's a UFA, so there's some hope. Again, hashtag landing spot matters for him.
Yep.
The fact that he was able to play a full season makes me feel even more confident in trying to go out there and get him.
Unfortunately for the sickle cell trade, Arizona has elevated. Otherwise, he would be fun in that offense.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's back. He'll be 29 at the start of this next season.
Yeah, it just depends where he lands and if whether or not he can compete and be fantasy relevant. And he needs to land into a fantasy friendly offense.
Yep.
And be something more than just a deep play threat.
Yep.
But I want that deep play threat option, so
I'll take chances on him in best ball if I like
Now,
the spot. That's for sure.
if Deshaun Jackson leaves Tampa Bay,
No, you leave Tampa Bay alone,
No,
Nick.
you
We have
just
Chris
leave
Godwin
him.
and Justin Watson to break
no,
out.
I want John Brown as the 3.
No, I want Justin Watson.
I want
as the
Justin
three.
Watson as a 3.
Thank you, Hopper. Come on, Nick.
Fine. All
Send
right.
him over to like Green Bay.
I was thinking that, and I didn't want to put that into existence because
I
think
know,
that
I
would
don't
be a great
either,
fit.
but it just seems right.
Send him to Green Bay. That makes a lot of sense.
All right. Well, that's all we got there. Let's go ahead and hit a beer review before we get to some other names worth mentioning.
Beer review.
All right. What did you guys think of Miss O'Leary's chocolate milk stout? Does it harken back to days of Chicago Fire lore?
It does. So it starts off with a very, very, again, traditional milk stout. It's like a creamy mouthfeel, almost a milk chocolate type of taste because the milk gives it a bit of a sweetness up front. Fades into more dark chocolate bitterness, a roastiness that I think is very, very characteristic of most of Spiteful's beers. So overall, it's very, very, very solid. It is one of the better milk stouts I have. I don't know that it does anything to necessarily distance itself from the crowd, but it's definitely sitting up there towards the top of the pile as far as quality.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's just a very perfect chocolate milk stout. If you're looking for a very heavy chocolate, this is your beer. It's not super filling. It's got a medium-ish body to it.
That's a good call out actually for it being a stout. It is a little lighter.
So there's a lot to desire about this beer.
And it has a little bit of bitterness, but for most stouts, you get a lot more of that dark chocolate bitterness taste. This barely has any to me.
Yep.
It's more that kind of upfront milk sweet to it.
On a side note, you know what I want done for a milk stout, Nick?
What's that?
I want a nitro chocolate milk stout.
Left hand's got one.
No, left hand's just milk stout. It's not a chocolate milk stout.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I want a nitro chocolate milk stout because of how creamy those nitro beers are. I think the carbonation on the back of a lot of these takes the flavor out of it whenever that kicks in. So I want that creamy nitro taste. I want to find one of those and get it on.
It could work.
I would also
would
love to
definitely
see
work.
more nitro coffee stouts too.
Yeah, that also.
All right. Well, that's enough on the beer. Thank you very much, Spiteful, for jumping on. That was Mrs. O'Leary's Chocolate Milk Stout. On to part 4 for this wide receiver section. Other names worth mentioning, starting with everyone's favorite talking point right now. Where is Tyrell Williams going to land in 2019?
Hold on. Wait. Did you say everybody's favorite talking point?
The Dynasty subreddit will not shut the fuck up about Tyrell Williams.
I could
Yeah,
give
he's
a
still
shit about
very
Tyrell
popular.
Williams.
Like I'm shocked that everyone's freaking out about him. Like even if he goes somewhere, I'm not overly excited about it, but everyone else seems to be.
I'm not overly excited about it either if he lands anywhere. Like, I'm glad that that's hype because no, never mind. I don't own any Tyrell Williams shares. I don't know that I care.
I do own Tyrell Williams shares. I'm interested. I'm not excited about it because I think wherever he lands,
sell. If everybody's talking about it, sell.
I think wherever he lands, he needs there's always a threat of them bringing in a draft pick. He's just turned 27. There's been talks of people wanting him to go to Indy. I think even if he goes to Indy,
Everybody wants every free agent wide receiver to go to Indy.
Why do you need T.Y. Hilton times 2?
well, Tyrell's at least a bigger body. He can fit. I
How'd
guess
that
me a
work out?
mold. Well, it didn't. I'm just saying. I think that's why people want
a
him
bigger,
there.
a
But
bigger body field stretcher. Have the Colts had one of those before?
He was productive-ish when he was healthy. I'm trying to
For those of
talk
you that
myself
didn't
into
get
more
it, that
excitement.
was a shot
for
at
him.
Dante Moncrief.
It was a shot at Dante Moncrief.
So I'd assume probably wouldn't be looking to pay much to buy him.
I would sell him, as Hopper said, because of where the hype is. It's just you got to find someone. I'm sure most leagues, especially expert leagues, you can probably sell him for a decent price. But I wouldn't be surprised if he does have a decent season. I just don't think it's a long term thing I want to get into.
The trades I've been seeing have been in the second-ish range.
Okay,
That's fair.
I'll
He'll
take
be more
that.
productive than a second round pick, more than likely.
I can find a wide receiver in the second round of this draft that's going to be as productive as Tyrell Williams.
He's quite confident in his skills. All right, let's move on. Number 45, Doug Baldwin had a down year, dealt with injuries. His knee was never quite right, but did have a few nice games down the stretch, but the team just didn't pass a lot, which limited what he could do. Do we think he bounces back at all in 2019, or are we looking at the kind of fallen arc of his career here?
You're looking at the fallen arc of his career, and I don't necessarily know that it's because of him. The knee injury did play a lot this year, but the target volume was way down because of what this offense is doing. Russell Wilson's throw volume was way down, and Tyler Lockett really showed up as the most consistent option there. So I am saddled with Doug Baldwin, and I am not happy about it because you probably need to try to get out of that. I don't like where that offense is trending.
Well,
For the wide receivers, I don't like where that offense is trending, and I don't like what I saw from Tyler Lockett, which really surprised me.
there might be some hope. He could be a cut candidate. You can save $3.5 million. I think
That's not enough to cut him.
it might be. It just depends, age wise, health
Send him to
wise.
Detroit.
Everyone to Detroit.
Send him to Indy.
I hear Detroit needs a slot receiver with a good track record.
I mean, because they're pretty good cap-wise, too. They got $50 million in 2019.
Anything can happen in June, though.
It's because they cut their entire defense.
Everyone's on rookie deals besides Wilson.
Yeah, he's their third most expensive player. Dead cap is $6.5 million, though.
I'm saying he could be. I'm not saying he is. I'm saying there is a chance where if they want to get younger.
If they want to go that route, I think they push the chips in and draft somebody and give you the obvious window. But if I think they get out, I think it's in 2020 when they save $10 million to cut him.
Yeah, that makes more sense to hold him for a year and then save 10 mil.
It does.
All right. Then we've got Kenny Stills. I'm sorry.
There's not a lot to like here. 27 in April is okay. The 2.5 mil cut could be saved if they cut him. New quarterback, new offense. There's not a lot to like from Kenny Stills.
Well, not a new quarterback yet, rumored.
I fully expect Tannehill not to be there.
I mean,
Well, I just wanted to
I know.
clarify, just
You're
in
true.
case somebody's living under a rock and thinks Tannehill got cut. That has not happened yet.
yeah. They can save about $13 million if they cut Tannehill now. So,
I fully expect he will get cut.
and they're kind of up on cap space wise. They only got $11 million free right now.
There's a lot of. I don't want to own any Miami players next year. Drake-ish. If
This is
the
my Dan
offense wants to
Thury
use it.
prediction of the week.
You're what?
Dan Thury level prediction of the week. Dwayne Haskins gets drafted to Miami, fails after 3 years, and the offense is still in turmoil.
It's the Dolphins.
I mean, I'm pretty good at those. I'm sure Ben would probably,
I'm not sure
do
how they're going to
ritual.
mess this up, but it's the Dolphins, so they will.
they're gonna wait till 2021 when they can draft Trevor Lawrence. That's what they're gonna do. They're just gonna be in
Yeah.
shitty turmoil for 2 years.
David fails, bridge quarterback. Brock Osweiler, another
Brock
shot.
They're gonna bring back Jay Cutler for another year.
Oh, no.
Don't put that in the universe.
Yep, universe does not need that in it. All right. So Kenny Stills, as long as he's attached to the Dolphins, we're not interested.
He's gonna be attached there for at least another year.
Dante
Yeah.
Moncrief.
He's a UFA. And he's still just 25 years old. That's the
Send
only.
him to the Colts.
That's the, send him back to the Colts. That's the
Send
only
him to
good.
the Colts.
That's the only
I mean,
thing I like about Moncrief.
if he
is that
went
he's
to
so
the
young.
Colts, I'd be pretty excited because he's going to catch a few touchdowns.
There's no place I want him to land, and I'm gonna feel good about it. Like send him to Pittsburgh.
That was going to be if Brown leaves Pittsburgh, I'd be stoked.
Yeah, he'd be a good compliment to Juju.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't want to get excited about Moncrief.
I wouldn't call
though.
myself stoked, but because getting excited about Dante Moncrief is a mistake I might have made last year.
Well, we'll look at the next three names. This is probably about as much excitement as you're going to get for a little bit.
Oh my God.
Oh wow, yeah.
we just
It's not
skip
until we
him?
get to 51 and 52 that I have things to talk about.
Like yeah.
Michael Crabtree is next at 48, followed by Willie Snead. So back-to-back Ravens.
Be nice if they had somebody that could throw the football.
Consistently.
I believe
Enough.
they're both under contract this next year.
Yeah, Crabtree turns 32 next year. They could only save $2 million if they cut him. I expect them to keep him, and they just continue to get younger and him just be more of a veteran.
I want absolutely nothing to do with Baltimore,
Exactly.
except Mark Andrews.
Andrews, I'm interested in.
Jackson, as long as he's the starter, is going to be fantasy relevant. Regardless of what
yeah.
you want to believe in it, he
Well,
will
they
be.
did. As long as you get, unless he's playing somebody who's got the personnel to do it, Los Angeles did.
Yeah.
And then if they bring in a good or big name at running back, I'd be interested.
That's the only thing I'll be truly interested in. If they,
Lamar
if they
Jackson will be
decide.
about as relevant as Robert Griffin III.
All right. And then anything to add on Willie Snead, or same thoughts for him, basically? He's just going to be a guy there.
He's just gonna be a guy.
He's done.
All right. And then up next is Devin Funchess, who will be a free agent.
Don't care.
Send him to Indianapolis.
No, please don't.
Wait, who needs a tight end? Buffalo. Send him to Buffalo.
That actually wouldn't be the worst idea.
No, don't. No.
Josh Allen is
no.
just a younger Cam Newton.
It's true.
He's a younger Blake Bortles.
No, he's
Yes, he
not.
is.
He's built more like Cam than Blake.
Blake's big though. Still,
He's got a much bigger arm than Blake too.
he's
That
he's
is
got a bigger
absolutely
arm
true.
than most people.
Yeah, I want to see him and Mahomes throw off, but that's why Cam Newton has an absolute cannon. Bortles doesn't have a bad arm, but Cam Newton has a cannon, and Josh Allen's a much better Cam Newton comparison.
Yeah.
All right. And then let's get to someone kind of fun here. 51, Marvin Jones, coming off an injury, but looks to be either a wide receiver 2 or a 1B to Galladay's 1A heading into 2019.
I actually had written down that he's the de facto 1B to Galladay's 1A in an offense which is going to need some receiving help. He had a very solid year before he hurt himself. Just 2 of his 9 games were below 50 yards. He was productive. He's a veteran guy that I do think that they keep around. It doesn't make sense to cut him. I think I looked that up. So, yeah, you're okay. I mean, he's going to be a guy you draft as a wide receiver 3 next year with 2 upside, basically.
He turns 29 in March.
So not a lot of time left.
There is a change in offensive scheme though. So at least what we expect it to be a lot more run focus. I don't know if this offense is going to support 2 decently high fantasy relevant receivers.
I would be shocked if Stafford can't support Galladay and Jones as at least wide receiver 3s.
I like
higher.
Marvin Jones in best ball. I like Marvin Jones as a wide receiver 4 on my team, where I don't have to rely on him. So I think there's going to be some.
Or is a
downwards.
rotating cast of 3, some positive matchup.
Yes, that's the better. Yeah,
That always sounds like a really good idea until you actually have to run that roster, and then it's a nightmare.
No, it sucks. It sucks
That's one of those things that sounds great on paper, and then you realize you can never pick the right one.
because you never do pick the right one.
Nope.
Ever.
Unless somebody emerges.
All right. 52 is Sammy Watkins. He will be in Kansas City at least through 2019. They do have an out heading into 2020 if they decide they want to get out from his contract. Was decently productive up until the injury started bugging him. Do we like him better heading into 2019, or is this going to be a tough year again for him?
I don't know if liking him better is necessarily the case because there is that concern with injury for Sammy Watkins. It was a hamstring this year too, which is not good for a speed guy once those start to happen. However, Like you said, he was productive when he played. He's in a high-powered offense. Thankfully, he entered the league at like 12 years old, so he's still only 26. So there's some things to like there.
There's always at least one person in every league that really believes in Sammy Watkins,
And they probably own him already.
and they probably already own him, or at least
They
bought him
got
when he
him
was
in,
cheap
they got him
last
in
year.
a league with Nick in a lot of places.
Same here,
I have 0 Sammy Watkins shares in any leagues I've been with you guys.
because you talk about him enough where other people get to buy him.
Yep, my only Sammy Watkins share is in the league without you two.
And I don't think we are the reason for that.
No, I mean, he's not somebody like if you believe in him and you think like he can be productive, which he's shown that he can be, in an offense that should be top 3 again. There is a lot of fantasy upside there, but you're gonna have to stomach the risk that you're taking with a guy who's been banged up a bunch. He can't stay healthy.
Yep, I'm hoping he can be a little more consistent next year with the health. If he does, I expect he'll be a wide receiver 3 at worst because the upside's there.
I think he'll be a 2 if he plays a full 16 game in this offense.
But will he?
Yeah.
Him and this next guy we're about to talk about, I think, are going to be very, very close to each other.
Well,
Very much could be.
Will Fuller's a little different in that he's going to give you an awesome 4 games, but that's it.
And then he's going to get hurt.
Yep.
Yeah.
But you know those 4 games are going to be amazing.
And
He was on pace for better numbers than Watkins and Jones. I think he played in 7, actually. But he was on pace to have a better season than both of those guys. So I'm just saying that you're looking at injury risk guys that have some serious upside if they stay healthy. Will Fuller is one of those, and Sammy Watkins is one of those.
Yeah, they're not decent buys if you can get them for on the cheap. You don't want to, trust them as as an every week starter. But if they have a flash in the pan and they play a full healthy season, you could be getting a wide receiver too in one of those guys.
Now I will say Sammy Watkins is going to be the lesser hyped of the two, if I had to take a guess.
I think both will get
I think Fuller's hype is really dialed down a notch with
3
with the
straight
surprise
years.
of QT, who also has his own injury concerns with him.
His was a single injury he kept re-aggravating. That's a little different to me.
It's like
yeah,
that
it
in
hasn't been
college.
multiple
I
It's not
remember.
3 straight years of season-ending
Well,
injuries.
I know because he's only been in the league for 1 year, but
Yeah, well, talk to us in 2 years.
yeah.
We'll see. I don't think QT had a long line of injury history in college, though. So
No, I'm not overly concerned with QT at this point. Obviously, that opinion can change as evidence comes in, but for now, I'm not too worried.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, 3 guys left here. Albert Wilson, another Miami player, flashed a little bit. He also went down for the year with a pretty bad injury. I believe his was a hip, wasn't it?
Sounds
I don't
right.
care about Albert Wilson, so I'm going to pivot this back to Kiki QT for a second. He's a different type of player than Will Fuller also. I just think that needs to be said. They're both quick. QT is more of a slot guy that is going to go underneath and get some yak, though, for you versus a field stretcher like Will Fuller.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
I
QT
brought
is,
it up because it does change the value of Will Fuller, which is why I think you can go out and get him for cheaper.
Target
we-
volume, but if they just alternate hamstring injuries, you're fine.
Just own them both.
just own both and start whichever one's healthy.
That's right. And when they're both
exactly.
healthy, you start
But-
Fuller.
Yeah,
And thank you for tuning into my opinions on Albert Wilson.
yeah, they're not going to take from each other's role. QT is going to be your Golden Tate type, and Fuller's your Deshaun Jackson type.
Albert
When they're all
Wilson's
healthy
time
for
is
3
better
games.
served talking about Kiki QT and Will Fuller.
That's right.
All right, so yes, as we've mentioned before, we're not real happy with the Dolphins currently, so not stoked on Wilson. If I was targeting a Dolphins receiver for some masochistic reason, Wilson's probably the one I want the most.
He'd be it, but you can just pick him up when he gets cut.
Yeah. Can we talk about another speed guy with leg injuries?
Sure, Marquise Goodwin.
Buried.
He's not buried. He's
Yeah,
still the top 2 wide receiver there.
Until they trade for Antonio Brown. Dante
Yeah.
Pettis.
I think Goodwin's still.
I don't
I don't know.
I
It's
still
probably-
like Goodwin.
I like Pettis more.
I do too. I want Goodwin to stay healthy because I like his story, and I think he can be productive when he
He's
is.
been through a lot.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just I don't think it's gonna happen.
I want to root for Marquise Goodwin, but
Same here.
yeah, it's the leg injuries and the fact that there are other people there. You have Jimmy Garoppolo coming back, which is going to be hard to predict because you had a total of 1 game with Jimmy Garoppolo to know where he's going to go, who he's going to target. You have the emergence of George Kittle, which is going to demand attention. Dante Pettis had a very, very good season. So and Goodwin can't seem to stay healthy. So unfortunately, he's kind of stuck there as a high upside guy with injury concerns.
Yep. Hopefully things clarify in the offseason so we know where to draft him. But my guess is he'd probably be a late round sleeper, and you're hoping that he
I
can
don't
put it
even
together.
know. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
a guy
no,
that'll
that's
likely
exactly
slide in
it.
drafts to a guy you can just pick up.
Yeah, probably be back where he was last year before the hype took off for him, which
Yep.
was like 10th-ish round.
I don't
Yeah.
even know if he gets I don't know if he gets drafted.
All right, Jamison Crowder is the last name I've got here, though I believe Hopper mentioned it before he started recording. He has a couple more. Crowder's going to be an unrestricted free agent. Anywhere that he could land that would intrigue you.
There's rumors that Washington wants to bring him back.
Detroit Lions.
What? Him as the Golden Tate role, if they were actually going to use it, would be interesting.
I'd be excited if that's the offense they're going to continue to run.
Or, I hate putting this in the universe, but if they cut Randall Cobb and bring him into Green Bay.
That's yes.
He makes a ton of sense in Green Bay, unfortunately.
With any field stretcher, that'll allow him to work over the middle with very little issues.
Yeah. Indianapolis.
Doesn't Hilton run mostly out of the slot?
Doesn't matter. Put him outside.
Put Crowder
Yeah.
outside?
No, put one of them.
Put one of them outside.
Put them both outside. Just fuck it.
Put them both in the slot. Run 4 wide receiver sets.
There you go. All right. But he's just basically, if you got him, you're probably holding him and waiting to see where he lands, and he's not a guy you're probably interested in buying at this
He turns
point.
26 in June.
He's not old.
Unfortunately, there's not a lot of great landing spots. I think out there because he's just a limited type of what you can get from him from a receiver because he's just a slot guy. So it just depends where he lands and if the offense is friendly enough for fantasy or
And
if,
we've seen slot guys perform.
Oh,
but
yeah,
you gotta
definitely.
land in an offense where slot guys can perform.
Yeah, they're much more situational than you see out of outside receivers. You can generally, you're like, doesn't matter where they go, they're going to get a certain number of targets. Where slot guys, the offense has to support slot receivers.
You can
A lot
buy
of
him for cheap
volatility.
if
If
you
you're in an
want him.
offense that supports slot receivers, they're going to produce like an outside receiver minus maybe the touchdowns.
Yeah.
Yep.
But if you're in an offense that doesn't, it's a pretty ugly scenario.
All right. Well, Hopper, you said you had a couple names.
Yep. All 3 going to be second-year players. So we have talked about them before, so I'll keep this brief. But other guys that deserve mention, Robert Foster. He is going to be, I believe, 25 years old coming into the beginning of the season. He's an undrafted free agent, but he did put together some very relevant games at the end of the season. 5 fantasy relevant games over, I think, the last 8 weeks. 3 of them over 100 yards. He does fit Josh Allen's game as a field stretcher. So I wanted to mention him. He's a guy that I'm holding on to in Dynasty because if he does good to start the year also, his value is going to go even higher than what it is already.
He's a guy who I'm very intrigued to see how the next 10 weeks go. Because
That also.
depending on what Buffalo does with this offense, his value could stay the same. It could skyrocket if they don't bring in anybody, or if they bring in a lot of people, he could just vanish.
Yeah, like his buy and sell window, it's like effectively the same. Because like if you want him, you can probably get him for, for decent value.
Probably a second.
And then if
Yeah.
you want to, if you want to go out there and sell him, I'm sure you can get people out there who will want to give up a second round pick for him.
It just depends on your depth too, because you probably plucked him off waivers, and if you got to go out of wide receivers, he's a great sell guy.
Very much so.
Anything else on Robert Foster?
No, just that was kind of the point I wanted to make is that his value is going to be a roller coaster over the next couple of weeks,
That's a
depending on
good
what
call
happens.
out though, because
Yeah.
it's a good call out.
A guy that I think you should be buying is Anthony Miller. Again, with Allen Robinson, we talked about his injury history. We talked about this being, they're going into the second year of Matt Nagy offense, which is going to throw some more wrinkles as an offense that is going to take a few years to fully implement. Quarterback that's going into their 3rd year. Anthony Miller caught 7 touchdowns on just 43 receptions. Also, he's a guy that they like in the red zone. Only 54 targets. It's a fledgling offense though, so just don't forget him. And if you're a rebuilding team, he's a nice piece to stash.
My only real concern is they're still going to have Taylor Gabriel this year, and that could limit targets for him one more season.
Then you buy him on the cheap now. I mean, if you're a team looking to rebuild, you're likely not competing this year, so you're
That's
hoping
exactly
you can
what
get
I
him
was
cheap.
saying.
So that's
Yeah.
a good call out.
Well,
Both sides though.
just kind of saying, I wouldn't expect a whole lot from his second year. You're looking
No.
for more flashes
you-
on film than
I
stats.
think you can still see something like if the Bears offense takes another step, Trubisky stays healthy, and like we saw a lot of good things from him this year. even with Gabriel healthy and playing.
That's also true. And if his target volume goes up a little bit and they start to fade Taylor Gabriel, they're just more of a couple shots a game. That's going to be good for Anthony Miller. He is more of a year 3 breakout candidate, as Nick was, I think, alluding to.
Yes.
But I wouldn't be surprised if you got some relevant games out of him next year. And
All
then
right.
the third guy I wanted to talk about is going to be another second-year wide receiver. That's Dante going into next season. That's Dante Pettis. He was hurt, but other than that, he played with 3 different quarterbacks. He played outside and slot. He showed the ability to be both a good route runner and a field stretcher like we saw in college. 5 or more targets in all games but 1. He had some high touchdown games. He had some very good games. He flashed the versatility that we liked with him, as well as the hands. So he's another guy that I'm looking to go out and potentially buy. And if he can develop a rapport with Jimmy Garoppolo, I think is going to be a very, very good person to have.
Yeah, if they don't bring in a big name, either in the draft or free agency, I think he's probably year 1A next year in San Francisco.
Yeah, even if he's opposite Antonio Brown, he's still a guy that I want to have as a maybe a wide receiver 3 in kind of a Cooper Kupp type of role.
Yeah, he's still a guy I'm very interested in.
Players, but
I'm very interested in him no matter what happens, but he could be a real nice piece if they don't bring somebody in.
Agreed.
We'll touch on one more as we're bringing up second-year receivers. I know as a show we're not high on him, but his situation can vastly change if Antonio Brown gets traded, and that's James Washington. We've seen what Pittsburgh can do with developing their receivers and becoming very fantasy-friendly and relevant. If you're looking for a guy who could be a nice year 2 sleeper.
The thing you're watching for from James Washington is an ability to run routes, because that positioning shit he did in college isn't going to work at the NFL level.
Yeah, and he flashed a couple nice plays
He
year
did.
1, so I'm interested. We have to see if the trade actually happens.
As I said, this is all base if Brown is moved on from.
And if they don't do anything else to address the wide receiver position.
And I will say that the advantage James Washington has is that with Antonio Brown there, a guy that gets it done almost completely on his route running ability, and Juju Smith-Schuster, who didn't profile great athletically but was also a solid route runner, he's in good company to fix those holes in his game.
He is.
Yep.
All right. Any other players we want to bring up?
I guess Christian Kirk, de facto one after this
Well,
season.
as we're talking about second-year wide receivers,
There's a lot to like, even though from a class that was considered to be kind of weak coming in to it last year. There's some potential.
You know what you really need to like about Christian Kirk, though, is the fact that Cliff Kingsbury is there, because Christian Kirk is the type of player that can benefit from that.
Yes, and he flashed big play and all.
I don't like Josh Rosen in that situation, but I love Christian Kirk in that
They
situation.
put together a good offensive line. That could be very good things in Arizona.
Yep. Hoping they address that heavily in this next draft. All right. Well, I think that's all we got for this episode. Came in just over an hour, so a little bit close to what we're aiming for these. Sorry, the last couple episodes have gone a little long. Also, if you notice sound jumping at all through the episode, that was me trying to adjust to try to keep things level. Towards the back end of the episode here, it seems that I see a lot less spiking in the Audacity recording, so hopefully that addressed the issue. We had somebody send us an email and let us know that they'd been hearing some
Sounded like we may have been clipping a bit early on, and then there were some volume issues last week. So just bear with us as we work through that. For those of you that don't know, Nick has done a very, very good job of learning how to run that on the fly. I ran it for probably the first 100+ episodes, but with me moving to St. Louis, it doesn't make sense to have the main audio interface where one guy is. So he's been learning this on the fly, and he's doing a good job with it. So just keep that feedback coming as we work that out.
Yep. Thank you so much for that, guys. We appreciate the feedback. We are Beerfield Fantasy Football. You can find us at Beerfield FF on Twitter, Instagram, and Untapped. DM the show at BeerfieldFF or email at beerfieldfantasy@gmail.com with any feedback, questions you guys have for us. If you're interested in merchandise, want to support us on our Patreon, send us beer, anything you want, hit us up at one of those 2 locations. Individually, I'm at Nick Sparts. To my right is Dan Thury.
And Thury BFF, 2 Fs.
Calling in from St. Louis is Christopher Hopper.
At Hot BFF with 2 Ps.
Shout out to
one other thing to throw in there, just to put it out in the universe. If you hadn't had the chance yet, I did do a guest spot with Football Garbage Time last Wednesday. Go check that out. It's always a fun episode to do. It's a little shorter, a little less analytical, a lot more of a hot take express. So if you got 30 minutes of your day, go give those guys a listen and check me out with them.
And one more quick thing, I will be on with them on Wednesday.
So back-to-back weeks?
So back-to-back weeks because I was running a beer tasting on the fly. That did not go so well.
Oof.
It wasn't my fault. Just no one showed up.
Can we blame Lane?
Yes. No, we can blame people that didn't promote it. But hey, either way, I'll be on with Garbage Time and those guys next week. So listen to both shows.
All right, go ahead and check that out. Go check out Hopper's episode from last Wednesday as well. Shout out to Spiteful Brewing for being the featured brewery on today's episode. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time on Beer Fueled Fantasy Football as we're going to go ahead and finish it up with tight ends.
See ya.
It's like mid-drink there.